The movie begins by introducing us to the story of a princess afflicted by a curse who must marry in order to break it. The movie kicks off in a massive kingdom where the king's daughter was going to visit her dad for the first time in a long while. So he threw her a party that totally matched her status. In the middle of the party, we see Princess Turandot. Let's just call her Dot so we can actually pronounce it. Anyway, Dot enters the palace all happy, and since her dad hadn't seen her in ages, he's thrilled and tells her to come closer. But as she's trying to get to him, she suddenly trips on the rug and hits the floor. Right then, the king gets up to help his daughter, and that's when we see their rug, which looks super weird because it's made in the shape of the entire kingdom, but there's one piece cut out. That's the one part of the land the king couldn't seize. And because his daughter fell on account of it, he orders his assistant to go liberate it ASAP, just to complete that rug. The assistant calls his soldiers. They get themselves ready to travel, and the distance is huge, needing days and months to get there. So we're going to leave them on the road and head straight to the kingdom of Vinia, where we find out the king, the queen, and their son Blue are wearing specific types of bracelets. These bracelets are magical. Each person wears one in a certain way, but the three bracelets can never be gathered together on one hand, because if that happens, the person wearing them gets cursed. Anyway, at that time we see Blue training with his coach, Joe, who's teaching him sword fighting. But Blue was still a little kid and obviously weak. While the whole royal family is happy, suddenly the king's soldiers arrive and start hurling flaming stones and tons of arrows, attacking the kingdom of Vinia. The king orders Joe to take Blue and run while he goes out to war. After a long day, unfortunately, the kingdom of Vinia falls under the occupation, and the king and queen die. The army commander seizes their bracelets to give them as a gift to the king. Joe had already taken off the bracelet Blue was wearing, so no one would recognize him if they saw him. The army commander returns with the gifts and everything he gathered from Vinia to present them to the king, including those three bracelets he put in a small box fit for them. So what does the king do? He presents all these gifts to his daughter Dot, who of course was happy with them. But when she opened the box with the bracelets, she liked them even more and decided to wear them all on one hand. That was the worst thing she could have thought of, because as soon as she put them on, she started screaming at the top of her lungs, and all of a sudden, the bracelets got tight on her hands like someone was squeezing them to lock them on. The king ran to his daughter to take the bracelets off, but unfortunately he couldn't. So the king's assistant decided to break them with a sword. And as soon as he got close to Dot, she started screaming hysterically because she saw his face as a skeleton, and even colors vanished from her eyes, and suddenly she just fainted. On the other side, we see Joe taking Blue to the house he lived in, right in the heart of the great king's kingdom, or basically near it. Of course, people were wondering who Blue was, since they knew Joe didn't have any sons and only had one daughter. So he lied to them and said he's the son of a friend, and brought him to stay so no one would get suspicious. He took Blue home and told his wife everything, and that was the first time Blue saw Joe's daughter, named We'll leave them to hug it out, and we go back to the king, who decided to bring a priest to treat his daughter. When he examined her, he discovered a curse had hit her, and this curse won't break unless a prince loves the princess and marries her. But that won't happen until she turns 15. For that whole duration, they have to live with it and keep her safe, and the bracelets will stay on her hands. We move back to Blue sitting at the doorstep, and comes out to sit next to him and comfort him. He didn't want to talk to anyone at all, and obviously anyone in his shoes wouldn't be able to say a single word. While they're sitting, they suddenly see fireworks. Blue speaks up, amazed by their beauty since it's his first time seeing something like that, and from that day on, he became obsessed with learning about fireworks. At the same time, the queen was sitting next to her daughter Dot, pointing out the fireworks to her too, but the poor girl couldn't see those colors. She saw them in black and white, and there was no joy in it at all. Actually, she was even sadder. Years go by, and we see Blue as a grown-up, sitting and doing experiments on the things he made. Comes in and jokes with him, and then she takes him with her to a big cave where people make fireworks. They blend in with the crowd and go in to watch. Blue was blown away by what he saw, but his amazement made him expose himself by mistake. Right then, the guards noticed him and started chasing him, but Blue and managed to escape. At that time, we moved to Dot, who was sitting in her room, and the king's assistant enters because her dad asked for her to train with him. Without any intro, she starts moving everywhere in the room easily and without anyone noticing her, So he realizes she has a huge magical power that lets her do that. The two of them go outside the house, and who was in the area? Blue and who were still running away from the cave. They saw the commander wanting to hit Dot and attacking her. Here, Blue intervenes to help and save her, but the commander was stronger than him, and with one hit here and one hit there, he knocks him to the ground. He was about to kill him if Dot hadn't stepped in and saved him. Of course, she thanked him for standing by her and saving her at first, and she invites them to stay the night at her place. At night, Dot was in her room as usual, trying to recognize colors, and Blue couldn't sleep. When he heard she was awake, he went out to her, wanting to help and talk, but she was someone very sharp in her words and nature. They agreed to go out the next day to train together, and that was the first time the two of them got close. They kept training all day until they were going out every day to train together, but she was always hiding the bracelets from him. One time he tried to get really close to her. He felt very sick, so she knew it was from the bracelets, which is why she hid them from him again, and he still didn't know about them. At night, we see the commander going to the priest in the cave, asking him for a magic recipe to make himself stronger and become like the princess. But unfortunately, the recipe doesn't work, and he's shocked and really annoyed. He yells at the priest because he can't help him. The next day, Blue was helping Joe move wood, but he wanted to attend the festival at the palace and asked Joe for permission to go. At night, we see Dot tied up in bed, and Blue enters and tries to help her and untie her. But she didn't want him to do that because the magic energy in the bracelets was active now, and if she's untied, she might kill him or anyone else. She basically does this every time the energy spikes. But Blue doesn't listen to her and unties her, and for the first time, he notices the bracelets on her hands. As soon as she gets up, she doesn't want to look at him, but he turns her face toward him, and right then she sees him as a skeleton. She tells him to run away fast, but she chases him against her will and grabs a sword, about to kill him. All this time, he's wondering why she's acting like this, until she manages to control herself a bit and tells him to leave fast. He doesn't wait around and escapes, not understanding a thing. The next day, there's a festival in the city, so she stays in her room training until her dad walks in and tells her she's grown up now and has to get married, reminding her of the vow she's supposed to take. At the same time, Blue was with in the market, and all of a sudden they see a thief stealing from people. They run after him and try to stop him, but they make a total mess of things. They manage to save the prince who's coming to propose to the princess. The prince stays with him all day. They take Blue and show him the fireworks he makes. The next day, he goes to the princess to propose, but for her to agree, she has to give him 3 riddles to solve. If he doesn't solve them, he can't marry her. As soon as he enters, he sees how she looks and lunges at her, but she easily ties him up with her magic power, and he can't do anything to her. Her soldiers arrive and arrest him, taking him to trial. The next day, the king and the prince appear to judge him, but Blue was standing among the people, and all of a sudden he started seeing weird things in his head. That made him move from his spot against his will and catch the attention of the king, who was surprised by him. But Blue tells him he wants to propose to the princess. Of course, this is shocking because a prince is supposed to be the one to do that, but the people revolt against him. They inform the king that he set conditions for the guy who marries the princess, and whoever solves them is the one who gets her. There was no condition from the start that he had to be a prince, so the king is forced to agree, especially since lets them know that Blue is a prince and the son of the king of Vinia, whom he killed before. The king is surprised because he thought Blue died, and there were no descendants of that king left. That's why he's put on the spot and starts the marriage rituals. She moves toward him, and they start focusing together, and here something weird happens. The bracelets generate a huge energy that makes Blue see everything that happened to his family on the last day before they died, and how much they suffered. The priest rings the bell to snap Blue out of his dream, and the king gets furious when he's sure he really is a prince. He gets up and leaves, and his soldiers arrest Blue and take him to prison. At night, they were going to put him on trial and execute him. Blue kept replaying his memories, remembering his mom and dad, and as soon as he did that, he started getting tense and yelling. The bracelets start tightening on Dot's hand even more, making her scream. When Blue was just about to die, Joe attacks the soldiers to stop them, but there's no hope at all, and they throw Blue into the hot water. But luckily, Joe tosses his spear, Blue hangs onto it, and lives. The people are happy and take him home. At the same time, the king was agreeing with his assistant to go finish Blue off so he doesn't cause trouble in the kingdom and make people turn on him. As for Joe, he orders Blue to escape outside the kingdom because his life is in danger. Blue didn't agree with that, but Joe tells him he can't stay with him now because there's no other solution. But Blue refuses. The next day, he goes to meet the king and stays replaying all his memories. He sees his dad killing the king's soldiers, and the truth was that his dad saw everyone in front of him as skeletons. He couldn't tell who was on his side and who was against him. By mistake, he killed his wife with a sword, and when he snapped out of it and saw her, he was devastated. We go back to the present and see Dot sitting in her room, annoyed. She grabs her sword and tries to break the bracelets, but nothing changes. As for Blue, he was tied up among people, and they were doing specific rituals for him, like cutting his chest. All the time he was remembering what happened to his family, so he finds out that after his dad killed his mom, he went back and killed himself. He calls out to the king and tells him the truth. And right then, one of the bracelets on Dot's hand unlatches on its own, leaving only one bracelet on her hand. In the middle of the trial, the commander wanted to get rid of Blue any way possible, so he wouldn't block him from inheriting the throne. But Dot comes out of her room and decides to go help him, and even all the people started fighting for him. The commander had managed to control everyone and throws his sword to kill Blue, but suddenly Dot appears, blocks the sword, and tells him he's forbidden from touching Blue again. At night, Blue returns to Joe, who's happy he lived after everything that happened today. At the same time, the commander was pissed off because Dot saved Blue, and he doesn't know what to do with her. So he stays the next day chasing after him to kill him. But suddenly, Dot appears with her men, and they attack them, and Blue escapes from them. But Blue is annoyed with Dot because she took his bracelet from him, and he asks her to duel. But Dot was stronger than him and managed to control him fast and easily. As long as she wanted to kill him, the bracelet acts up and she can't stand it. Even when he gets injured, the same thing happens to her and she falls to the ground, fainting. But when she gets up, a miracle happens, and her sight returns to normal because she starts seeing the world in color again. She decides to move Blue to her house to treat him, and there the king finds out what happened and is happy because his daughter can see again. He lets Blue live in their house as long as he's the solution and treatment for his daughter. Dot enters to sit next to Blue and tells him everything that happened. Meanwhile, the king goes out to talk to his assistant and finds out from him that the army commander killed the priest. Here we move to the commander, whom we see going down into a pond and doing specific rituals to gain magic energy. He actually manages to seize a huge energy and turns into a human that isn't affected by anything, and nothing happens to him. Even when he tries to stab himself with a knife, nothing happens. So he decided to kill the priest so he wouldn't pass the recipe to anyone else and keep it secret for the rest of his life. We then move to Blue, whom we see sitting in the tavern. Air was very scared for him and asks him to leave the city before performing the marriage rituals. But he reassures her and says he will face his fear, and no matter what happens, he won't run from anything again. Air is moved by his words and leaves, crying. In the middle of the night, we see the commander going to Joe's house to try to kill Blue, but Joe tells him he's not there. All of a sudden, they attack each other, but Joe is shocked when he finds the sword doesn't affect him. He realizes he's standing in front of a monster. At that time was going to meet Dot, and the priest was still alive and goes to meet the king's assistant. As for Blue, he was returning to the palace and was surprised the commander was waiting for him there. But Dot arrives at the right time with a lot of men, and they attack the commander and his men. But the commander manages to grab the sword before it reaches him and threatens her with killing Blue. She yells at him and orders him to stop what he's doing, but he disobeys her orders and takes Blue with him. The next day, he takes him to the royal palace to present him to the king. He's taking him as a gift, hoping he'll marry his daughter. But Dot brings the priest out from inside, who starts telling the king everything the commander did. He tells him about the day he went to war on the kingdom of Vinia, and at that time, he wasn't the commander yet. He killed his own commander just so he could take his place, and all of this was his plan from the start because he wants to seize power. Blue gets angry and wanted to lunge at him, but he's tied up, so what can he do? The king yells at him for what he did and wanted to punish him, but the commander doesn't let him and even fires an arrow at him. It hits someone next to him and kills them. He leaves, standing in the middle of the hall, and walks away not caring about anyone. At that point, had gathered all the people of the kingdom and came with them to the palace to take revenge for the commander's injustice toward them. They surrounded the whole place and managed to free Blue too. The commander underestimated them, and of course his power is huge and he's not affected, so he's not scared of them, until he fires an arrow into the fireworks, setting the whole place on fire. That was the first time Dot saw fireworks in a long time, so she was very happy. Blue noticed her, so they both lunge at the commander, who gets angry, grabs the sword, and starts attacking them. No one can stop him. The king decides to attack him himself and kill him. He grabs the sword, and the commander, without any sword at all, decides to face him. But any blow the king lands doesn't affect the commander. Even when he tries to stab the sword into his stomach, it breaks. He's stunned because he didn't think he was this strong. Right then, he grabs the king to kill him, but Dot attacks him along with Blue, and everyone standing there. Still, not a single blow affects him. A fierce battle breaks out between them. They don't know who's hitting who or who's protecting who. All we see is them hitting fast and the commander refusing to be affected by anything. If he was wearing a bulletproof vest, it wouldn't be like this. Dot tries to kill him too, but can't. Right then, the commander chases her, so Blue takes her and escapes. The commander is right behind them, not leaving them alone until they reach the fireworks cave. They try to kill him with anything. They fire cannons at him and whatever they find. But he's still not affected and picks up a pot full of fire and throws it at them. But Blue blocks it for Dot and takes the hit in her place. When she sees him sacrificing himself for her, she starts to like him. But this is no time for liking anyone. They take each other and start running from the commander while he's still following them. Blue grabs a torch and seizes the chance while passing by a lot of explosives. Surely the commander will pass by them. He lights them so they explode on him when he passes. Of course, the commander thinks he won't be affected by anything and continues his way normally. So the explosives all blow up on him. But the shock is that he comes out of it fine too. Even with 7 lives, it wouldn't be like this. But as soon as he comes out, a huge rock falls on top of him. Blue and Dot stand looking at him, happy. When they're sure he's dead, they look at each other, and that was the first time they got this close. They were gonna have a romantic moment, but they were surprised by the commander coming out from under the rocks, still alive. Dot decides to attack him, but her power is weaker than his, and her blow doesn't affect him, unlike how he wounds her with a big cut. Some of her blood drips on his shoulder, and she notices his skin moving and being affected by her blood. But he pushes her and gives her a powerful hit, knocking her away. She throws the sword she was wounded with her blood on it, to Blue, and tells him to stab it in his heart. He doesn't wait, and as soon as he gets close, he puts it in his heart immediately. Right then, her blood goes down on his skin, and it moves from its place. Here the sword is able to penetrate his skin normally, and the commander starts turning into burning rock, like volcanic lava coming out of a volcano. He then turns into dead rock. As for Blue, he runs to Dot to check on her, and her injury was very big. He tries to wake her up, but it was clear she was saying goodbye. She tells him she loved him very much and dies. Blue was very sad for her and sat there crying. After a few days, we see Blue in the royal palace. Gives him his sword and says goodbye because he's leaving. He takes his horses and decides to return to his kingdom again. As he's going out, Zhou sees him and stands looking at him. As for she was waiting for him outside in the forest to see him for the last time before he leaves. Here Blue starts his way to return to his kingdom again and rule it like his dad used to, but this time without bracelets. After that, we see him riding a boat in the river with tons of fireworks behind him, but for the first time, he doesn't look at them or admire them. It seems like nothing makes him happy anymore. After a while and many years passing, we see Blue as the king of Vinia again, but after he's grown up and become a man. One day, he was celebrating his kingdom's independence and saw Dot lighting the fireworks. He was happy she returned to him again, but by the time he looked at the fireworks and looked back at her, he saw her as a ghost. He realized she was next to him, happy for him, but she's actually dead. Up until that moment, he couldn't see anyone else or love anyone in her place because she was the first girl he got close to like that. And here we can say our movie for today ends. I hope you liked it and wait for us in a new movie. Bye.